Hey everybody, welcome to WTF Hammer Underworlds. So today's video is another balancing video looking at Season 3 warbands, specifically Hrothgorn's Mantrappers, who I've recently reviewed. You could find the link to that review in the description below, so go check that out before you watch this video if you're interested. But in that video I basically came to the following conclusions about this warband: that basically Hrothgorn himself, the leader, is a badass. He has solid ranged and melee attacks, he has good defense, he has good movement, he's a hunter, he has great upgrades available to him, so great that 2 of them are restricted. However, he and his whole warband can be difficult to inspire, requiring that enemy be taken out of action adjacent to Hrothgorn, which is a bit tricky, especially since he has a good ranged option available to him. And prior to being inspired, this warband is generally subpar. They're not very great. They do get big boosts when inspiring, so this is a bit of a drawback. They also have some very useful faction-specific cards in general. They have 2 restricted cards, as I mentioned, which force this warband to make hard choices as well, which is a challenge for them. And an interesting point is that Hrothgorn's minions, unlike Molog's minions, are actually generally competent and useful. They can hold objectives, they can use traps, or Bushwhacker can at least. They can make decent attacks, at least Thrafnir can, but overall, pretty handy entourage. So with all this in mind, I had rated this warband as an A, putting them within a generally good range as to where I have been trying to balance warbands around. So all I need to do in this video is make some tweak recommendations, just little adjustments that Games Workshop could incorporate if they wanted to bring a little bit more balance to the game. And as I always recommend, I have some errata ideas, so changes to the existing rules that could be made, and a couple new faction-specific cards that I'd recommend that this warband have to help tweak them in an interesting way. Starting with the errata, not a whole lot to say here. I actually do like this warband's cards. I like their fighter cards, their objective cards, their power cards. I have no suggestions to make. I think that they were made very well. All I'm really going to be recommending are some faction-specific cards, which I'm just going to go over the method to which I recommend they be introduced right now. So basically in deck building, as I'm sure you all know, you need to have 12 objective cards and 20 or more power cards, with generally a 50-50 split between Gambit and upgrade cards. Now Hrothgorn Mantrappers have that, as do all Season 3 warbands, but in the previous balancing videos that I've made, the final card count always ended up being 12 objectives with 11 Gambit and 11 upgrades. So because of that, I'm going to be recommending a new Gambit and a new upgrade card that could be released for this warband to just provide some moderate options, nothing too powerful, nothing too weak, just interesting little modifications. And my first suggestion will be a ploy, obviously a Gambit ploy, not a spell. And that idea being just a way to move enemies, because it is necessary that Hrothgorn get units adjacent to him for the sake of inspiring. He also has some objective cards that tie around benefiting from having enemies be moved. They have a trap. So my recommendation here would be a faction-specific distraction, which can be called Effective Lure. Justification is that it would help place enemies in traps, which is obviously very nice, and will help score flush them out, which is where enemies needs to get pushed adjacent to Hrothgorn. So nothing too crazy there. Next little suggestion I have here is an upgrade, a way to improve their control game. And I'd recommend a faction-specific Grim Tenacity that could be restricted to Hrothgorn, called Really Heavy. And this card basically just prevents fighters from being driven back, because a bit of a challenge that Hrothgorn has, especially against ranged warbands like Thundrix Profiteers, is that if he advances and they shoot him, they can knock him back, you know, aside from just normally driving him back. And since he's the main physical force of this warband, it can be a bit of a hassle if he starts getting knocked around the board, especially if he gets knocked into lethal hexes. So justification here is basically that it fits with the fact that Hrothgorn is a big ogre, so it should be difficult to knock him back, or drive him back rather. It would also help control Hrothgorn's movement without really influencing the tier, just allows him to be more of a stable force that can cross the battlefield without having so many interacting forces pushing him away. And that basically does it. So obviously no recommendations for the errata. As far as new faction-specific card recommendations, I just recommend a new Gambit and upgrade cards that they match the other warbands that I have balanced. Gambit card being a faction-specific distraction called Effective Lure, and an upgrade card being a faction-specific Grim Tenacity restricted to Hrothgorn called Really Heavy. And that does it. So hope you guys enjoyed this video. If you have any thoughts or suggestions, please comment below, and please like and subscribe if you enjoy this content. And next week I'm going to be looking into the Wormspad. Thanks for watching and have a nice day.